Afternoon, everyone, and thank you all so much for joining the second of our Retail Jeweller Live Insights webinars. For those of you who don't know or haven't joined one of these events before, we launched these as a series of new digital events to try and keep the industry connected at the moment, and so I hope that you find them useful and insightful. We're going to have further events coming up over the next few weeks, so keep checking our website and social media for details on those. Also, equally, if you have any suggestions for topics you'd like to hear about, please don't hesitate to get in touch with us. Back to today though, and the future of independent retail. Before I introduce you to our four panelists, I just wanted to let you know that you do have the ability to ask questions throughout. We will take these sort of as and when throughout the chat, and then normally answer quite a few of them at the end as well. So if you do have a question, make sure you type it in. Equally, if you have any technical issues during the webinar, you can type in anything about that as well, because I have two colleagues on the admin side who can help out if you've got any sort of technical glitches going on. Right, so now back to today, and I'm going to introduce you to the panelists for today's discussion. Firstly, someone who might be familiar to some of you, and who's actually the only jeweller on today's panel, which seems interesting for a retail jeweller webinar, is Dominic Gomer, who's the Managing Director of Lumbers Jewellers in Leicester. And then joining me from another retail sector, we have Rowena Howie, owner of the Revival Retro Clothing Boutique in London. And then joining our two retail guests to helpfully put things into a bit of context, we have from research firm Mintel, Senior Analyst for Retail, Chana Baram, and from Independent Retail Initiative Save the High Street, founding partner Alex Schlagman. So this session, we're looking at kind of the fact that independent retailers have been quite hard hit by the coronavirus pandemic and the enforced lockdown. And as some businesses start to take the tentative steps towards reopening on Monday, we wanted to have a look at how different independent retailers have dealt with the impact of coronavirus, and whether they're going to be capitalising on new opportunities as the way that UK consumers shop has shifted after the lockdown. So with that in mind, I'm going to direct my first question to the two retailers on the panel, and ask sort of both of you when you closed, when you're planning to reopen, and what has been the impact for your business so far. So I'll kick off with Dominic, and then we can go to Rowena after that.
Good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, we closed on the 23rd of March. We closed in the morning when Boris made the announcement in the afternoon. I have to say it was a hugely emotional day for us, and you know, I think for everybody within the industry to suddenly think that you're closing your shop on that day and have no foresight of what was going to happen over the next week was just an abyss that was opened up. So we closed on there, and we are reopening on Monday. Full hog, full opening hours, full 6 days a week, and we don't open some days anyway, so the full normal trading practices as from Monday.
And Rowena, what about you? What was your experience?
Yeah, we closed a couple of days ahead of the lockdown on the 18th of March, closed to the public. Staff were still in at that point. Logistically, it was already becoming hard, and sales had already fallen off a cliff from about the 15th, 16th onwards as the media changed. So late March was incredibly difficult as the whole world changed and people's response to it, and buying a new dress was the last thing on people's minds. We were very much focused on managing our cash flow in the future, right through March and into April, and we were changing our shift in focus to more online, general digital communications as well, not just our e-commerce site. I will be honest, we only got a trickle of web orders through that first bit of the period, and we were in such dire straits we ended up running a pay it forward crowdfunder, and that kind of turned everything around, the ability to buy vouchers to redeem later, because we have a really good loyal customer following, and that really changed everything for us, including my outlook. If I was feeling quite depressed about the whole scenario, it was about to start focusing on the future and change things up there. So My store is in the centre of London, and obviously London is a city that is highly reliant on public transport. So although we could open on Monday, we're not going to in terms of normal opening hours, because the critical question of how do people get to our shop in central London, because we are so reliant on public transport, it's not just a question of moral obligation to my staff, but also will customers start visiting the high streets in central London. So we have started an appointment system offering either private in-store appointments or virtual shopping appointments. So the staff member is conducting the video call in store, but the customer can shop from their armchair, and it's about just improving the communications further. And we'll use that to inform our future opening strategy.
Brilliant, thank you. And what's the uptake been like so far on the appointments system? Have you had bookings?
We have had bookings. We've had all of 4, to be absolutely honest. I think that is an indicator of what I already thought, that people are not yet ready to travel to central London, which means I'm not ready to start opening on full opening hours. But I do believe that we're at a critical point of change in communications from the media, from the government, in just the general public psyche. And I think that could start changing very fast and very quickly.
Great, and with those answers in mind, I was actually going to direct my next question to Alex and say, because obviously you deal with a lot of independent retailers through Save the High Street. So does the experience of Dominic and Rowena, does that echo sort of experience of other independent retailers that you have spoken to during this time? Oh, Alex, I think you're still on mute.
Yeah, so I was going to say, so it echoes Rowena and Dominic in different ways, actually. So a lot of the high street's sort of raring to go, really keen to get open as quickly as possible. As Dominic's, really sort of emphasised here, really wants to get back to normal. But very much echoing Rowena and a lot of the other points she was making. So, footfall fell off a cliff even prior to the formal lockdown period being kicked in. When lockdown did kick in, real shift in focus, shift in sentiment away from, what's it going to take to get footfall, what's it going to take to get sales, to how do I button down the hatches, how do I reduce my costs, how do I rationalise any costs that exist within the business at the moment, how do I get in touch and negotiate my terms with my landlord, how do I renegotiate my terms with suppliers, how do I remove costs from areas like utilities and payments, things where there might have been costs before, and then how do I start to think about selling in new ways. So different parts of the high street reacted in different ways, but a lot of entrepreneurs on the high street really thought, wait a second here, I can still sell in some way, or I can still engage my customers in some way, whether it's using Zoom and keeping in touch in that way. And as Rowena's pointed out, big focus with us at the moment about getting appointment systems and getting reservation systems set up really effectively, because as we reopen over the next couple of weeks, it's going to be really important that people feel safe when they come back to the high street, and a successful relaunch is going to have safety at the core of this. So I think, as we look into the next period here, we've got data suggests 98, 99% of businesses we're talking about are desperate to go, but a hell of a lot of businesses still have work to do to get things like the COVID-19 formal risk assessment set up, to make sure they've got good quality sanitizer units that make people feel safe at the door. This isn't just about the spread of disease, this is about footfall as well. And make sure even yourself as the retailer that you've got the right PPE equipment, that your staff looks like they've been set up to be safe in a safe environment, and that the communication with your customers and the communication with your team is clear. I think there's still work to be done over the coming few days to make sure people are ready to set up and reopen both safely and successfully.
And just going to Chana now, from a Mintel perspective, do you have any insights you can share about the sectors which have performed well, or those that have performed not so well during the lockdown, and anything specific relating to the performance of independent businesses?
Sure, so we have a weekly tracker. So we've been tracking consumer sentiment every week, basically since around the start of COVID, and when we started to realise just how much it would affect the retail market and various other markets. And what we have seen is, and has been consistent throughout, is the things that have done worse is things like fashion, sorry, Rowena, and really people are not spending on things that they don't see to be essential, particularly big purchases. So things like couches and any big pieces of furniture. But the things that have done better are, you know, smaller things that are making people feel good. So it's kind of what we would call the lipstick effect, is when people want to spend a little bit more on a smaller item. So people have been going out and doing that and maybe treating themselves to, you know, a nicer moisturizer or different things like that, or nicer little trinkets for the home, things like plants. And then within the fashion sector, areas like comfort homeware, athleisure, we've seen even slippers, more people are buying them, and various other pieces as well, pajamas, lingerie has done quite well. And people have been going more towards those things. It's, as I would say, what you could expect probably at the start. There have been no big surprises really in that data.
And in terms of the data as well, I mean, I've seen various sorts of studies and reports and data coming out that obviously, as you would expect, most of the sales have been going through online, but within that it's the sort of the multi-channel businesses that are doing better than the pure play online businesses, the people that have a store as well as an online presence. And do you think, have you seen any evidence to support the fact that people are going to continue to shop online, and as such, do you think independents need to adapt their strategy kind of accordingly to become a lot more multi-channel?
Yeah, definitely. We don't have any hard data, you know, saying whether people will definitely continue. I mean, it's hard to say. People don't know how they're going to feel after this. But I would say that we would definitely expect it, not just from looking at data and consumer behaviour, but also how other, you know, large retailers are starting to react. So today we have Inditex saying that they're going to heavily invest in digital, and they expect their digital channel to grow hugely just in the next 2 years. So all of these are really big indications that the expectation is that consumer habits will change probably permanently after this. So people have become much more comfortable and confident shopping online, and people that maybe wouldn't have shopped online before have started to do so, and maybe getting used to it and seeing this as actually really quite a convenient way to get items. People are at home a lot, so there's not the logistical issue of, you know, when you're going to be in, you're going to miss your package. So it has become a lot easier to do, and it's definitely something that I would say the retail sector in general does need to focus on, not just from an independent perspective, but there are many big retailers that don't have a great online offering. And what we've seen is that the ones that do better online, and as Rowena said, it's not just about selling on your online channel, it's also about having just a presence online, you know, showing people that you're there, offering different things like online appointments, and being in touch with your customers via social media. All of those things can create, you know, more customer loyalty and people just engaging with your brand a little bit more.
And with that in mind, I mean, I guess the next question sort of naturally follows on from that to Rowena and Dominic. You both have websites, but is it something that you're going to kind of put more focus on going forward as a result of this sort of shift in shopping habits?
I have to say that, funny enough for us, sorry Rowena, I've jumped in. Our current website is on Magenta 1. And as I think Magenta 1 is being disused or becomes obsolete this month. And therefore we had to change to Magenta 2. So we'd started that change, we'd started our website build, unfortunately just too late, because I'd have far preferred our brand new website to be available for all this lockdown, because our current website doesn't do things that our new website's going to be able to do, because it will be an all singing and dancing website. I will sit down and turn around and say a little bit that, you know, I know COVID is a hugely affecting part of our lives, but if we weren't moving in that direction already, we weren't seeing what was happening in the world anyway. You know, we always had to have that interaction between our bricks and mortar site and our websites. And, you know, it was so important to communicate with your clients long before COVID came. So, you know, we were communicating in ways before COVID with our people, through our internet sites, through weekly letters, through everything else. Yes, we upped it during a period of time during COVID and lockdown. We upped it, fortunately, remarkably well, and we've traded remarkably well during COVID. We've had huge success from innovative sales practices we've done during the period of time. I mean, as we were joking beforehand, I mean, you know, a lot of people say they've had a lovely time with their families. I've been at work every day during the lockdown. I mean, we've never not been allowed to go to work. You know, people say you're not allowed to go to work. There's never been a stage where you're not allowed to go to work if you can only do your work from your workplace, which our stock is in our workplace. So I've always been allowed to come to work, never breached lockdown. But on the other side of the coin, if you didn't go to work and you didn't work your customer base with your stock in your shop, it's different to retail. I've got to say that. I do think there's a huge difference between what Rowena's going to say and what I'm going to say. I can have a good week from selling one item. I'm not selling Smarties. I always said I'm not selling Smarties. You know, so I can just sell one diamond ring, and that's actually can make my month. So, you know, we don't need that volume, and therefore we should have got through the COVID period better as an industry in terms of the retail jewelry industry than I think many have done so.
So we have a full e-commerce site, have done since 2013. We've always offered the ability for customers to buy online, but for me, the focus was the bricks and mortar shop. That was even the call to action on the website, because we can improve the average transaction value and lessen returns in the shop, apart from providing a really amazing experience. But we had a pretty brutal wake-up call 18 months ago when we reached the break clause in our lease, and our landlord wanted to do an upwards-only rent review, and they wanted to increase the rent by 40%. So at that point, our sales online were 20% of our business, and I was very concerned that if I was going to have to close the shop, that would I be able to migrate my business to an online-only company? I didn't want to be an online-only company. I love my bricks and mortar store, but you have to think about these things. So we've already been in a transition phase of really trying to equalize that percentage of online sales compared to in-store sales. And if anything, COVID-19 has just absolutely focused and prioritized that outlook. I never want to lose my bricks and mortar shop, but for me, online is very important. And when I say online is very important, it's not just an e-commerce site. It's not just about transactions. It's about digital commerce, and it's about communications. So selling, in my world, is storytelling. And the one thing that's been really important to do throughout this time, even when nobody was buying at all, was to continue to tell our story in a relevant and meaningful way, which wasn't just the story of buy, buy, buy. It's a story of, you're our loyal and lovely customers. We love you. You love us. This is what's happening to us. This is what we mean to you. This is how we need to change to be able to continue to relevant to you. It has been a two-way process of conversation. And I have to say that that has largely occurred on social media rather than on our e-commerce website. So e-commerce is absolutely important, and it's important to different businesses in different ways. But I do think that online in general is hugely important. If I didn't have the reach that I actually have, that I've spent building for the last few years, I couldn't have done that storytelling as effectively to reach as many people.
I think that's very true. Just sort of adding to that, and the one thing I think Rowena and I both will probably agree with is that the one thing that's accelerated for us is that the communicative methods we're using. So the old telephone of having a handset has gone to me. You know, I never want to speak to a customer in that way again, if I can help it. I want to speak to them face to face, like we all are now, where they can see my facial expressions, where I can see their facial expressions, where I can show them product immediately. Do you want to buy this mug? You know, you can show it to them, and you can show them items. So to me, that's probably the biggest change for us, is how we will communicate. I just never want to see my sales team using a telephone again. I just think it's impersonal. It's old-fashioned. We are now all Zoom, Team, WhatsApp, phone friendly. If we're not doing all of those communicative methods, I think we're old hat. And I think that's really probably the biggest accelerated part of the digital thing, because everything else in the digital thing we did, we did correspond each week, we did do newsletters. It's accelerated it all, made it more important. But the virtual appointments, which we started as well, which I think most people, or a lot of people have started, exactly like Rowena's saying, the virtual appointments have been absolutely vital. I made a very large diamond ring sale 2 weeks ago, purely because I could show it to the client in a camera, showed all the different ones, showed them being worn and everything else, as opposed to speaking down the phone, which would never have given the advantages. So that's been a big plus for us.
Brilliant, thank you. And Alex, is this, in terms of what you're advising via Save the High Street, are these the kind of things that you're encouraging retailers to make sure that they're getting involved in and being a part of? Oh, you're on mute again, sorry. Oh, I think you're still on mute, sorry.
How's that?
That's perfect.
Yeah, just again, echoing again what Rowena and Dominic have talked about here, and sort of picking up on a couple of things that Chana mentioned too. This is an accelerator for a lot of the trends related to what's been going on in retail for many years now. Some of the big trends that we've talked about, we really actually get under that, is that it's not about online or offline, but it's about the connected journey. And actually the big growth in retail has been around researching online, purchasing offline, researching offline and purchasing online. And even some of the things we're talking about here with, how do we showcase a product from the store via a video conference, as well as a whole bunch of other things to do with online and offline coming together, such as local on-demand delivery. This has always been a big opportunity for high street businesses to really outcompete online-only businesses that only serve their customers from warehouses out of town into the major towns and cities, because you're round the corner. And if you have a good courier service set up from your website or on a marketplace, or you're even doing it yourself, you should be able to serve your local customers much more quickly and efficiently than online-only retailers who serve their customers from big out-of-town warehouses into major cities and towns. Click and collect and curbside delivery has been another big one as well. So people ordering online to pick up at the store. And even if we're not going into the store because you're not in the essential category, you can still pick it up outside of the store. So maybe pick it up in an essential retailer nearby. We're seeing a lot of interesting collaboration going on, where the essential retail offering on that high street is acting as a click and collect point for other businesses. So ultimately, this idea of online and offline coming together and how you benefit at the intersect of those two things, was an opportunity before, is an opportunity now, and I think will continue to be one of the big opportunities moving forward. And I think Chana mentioned a lot of the growth in retail. We're seeing a lot of growth in e-commerce retailers come from the offline chain retailers who are actually picking up on their big numbers of growth in terms of their sales. Clearly, part of this is the fact that yes, you can't shop offline in that business at the moment. That's an opportunity for every independent business owner to keep telling that story, to keep engaged with your existing customers. Because if you're there for them now, they'll be there for you on the other side of this and they'll remember you. If you're supporting them and telling them what you're up to, if you're showing that you're doing your bit to support your community in this crisis, it won't be forgotten. But also on the other side of it, they want to still shop with you. And if they know there are options that are convenient for them to continue shopping with you, they would prefer to continue shopping with you than go elsewhere. So I think this is an accelerator for a lot of the big trends around online to offline, but it has also opened up a bunch of new considerations as well that weren't there before. Clearly, one of the big ones has been about access to capital. Now, a lot of the businesses here may already have been through processes around engaging with banks to get access to loans or lent money to themselves or even applied for grants. But clearly, the whole market now is thinking, oh dear, what do I do here to make sure I can get access to this discretionary fund that's now been set up? How do I make sure that this bounce back loan is good for me? So there's been a whole piece, with a lot of our community of supporting people around new things that we weren't talking about as much before, which is how do you get access to grants? How do we support you in making sure you get the capital you need? I mentioned earlier with landlords, and we've got a lot of property sector stakeholders in the SaveTheHighStreet.org community. But actually we made a big beeline very early on to say, you know, what's very clear to us that a lot of the high street doesn't have professional representation in these negotiations with their landlords. So, you know, at the moment we're doing a whole initiative. We're offering free calls. You know, we've got agents and surveyors to agree to do completely new terms for independent members of the SaveTheHighStreet.org community to get access to things like no win, no fee support on negotiations with their landlord, which again may have been things in considerations before, but now a lot of the market is suddenly realizing I'm in a different conversation with some of my key partners, suppliers and stakeholders. You know, when we look at the marketing side of things, yes, marketing continues, and it's great to hear, you know, Dominic's really kicking on. You know, Rowena's, as expected, is really kicking on with a lot of her great, you know, initiatives, creativity around the way she's marketing and telling those stories. You know, and a lot of those same good principles that existed before, that will exist on the other side, were still here, but marketing has certainly adapted. You know, and there's certain things where there's new opportunities, there's absolutely no doubt. And, you know, I can get into the detail of that, but it's quite a big story in itself. And I think more interesting to look at is actually the offering itself, because there's a lot of businesses out there who've gone, I am doing something that's relevant at the moment, but it's maybe not as relevant if I was to adapt it or even pivot my business slightly to offer this particular offering, which has a very, very clear relevance to what's going on with COVID-19. So, you know, a lot of businesses in the community are doing things like setting up care packages for their local community, as an example. You know, sometimes working alongside other businesses on their high street to develop, you know, delivery offerings for key workers or people who are self-isolating, and actually developing new offerings which have a coronavirus angle to the whole thing to take advantage and be quite opportunistic in this period as well. So I think there's been definitely an accelerator of things that we've been talking about for years and will continue on moving forward. But there's also been a whole bunch of new challenges as well as opportunities that have been thrown up for independent retail in this period.
Yeah, and touching on one of those one of those points you made in relation to online was about kind of the advantage of sort of having that local customer base. And I just wanted to ask Hannah briefly, like, have you seen whether sort of through the data or anecdotally evidence to suggest that there's been a move to shop more locally? I mean, I've, you know, talking from my own experience, since, you know, working from home, not going out as much, you know, I've been shopping more with not necessarily just going to the big supermarket, but going to the greengrocer in my local high street or whatever it might be. So is there an opportunity there for independent retailers to sort of capitalize on that localism?
Yeah, definitely. And so far the data has shown that people have become more community minded. A significant amount of people, and a similar amount have said that, you know, they have increased the amount that they're shopping at independent retailers. Things like that might, you know, it's to be expected. People can't go very far, so they might be discovering, you know, a lot of new retailers on their high street, or even, you know, the ones that aren't open, walking past them every day and thinking about, you know, when they're going to shop at them or when they're going to support them. And I think this is something that can continue afterwards. You know, going into city centres is going to become much more difficult, and smaller retailers on, you know, more local high streets can definitely start to capitalise on this and really, you know, gain new loyal customers. You know, not just from a COVID perspective, but we have a new report coming out about ethical retailing, and I think a lot of customers also approach this and are now seeing it as more of an ethical stance as well. And we have seen you know, I was surprised at the number of people that have said that they, you know, they would spend more if it was a local retailer. So if they saw the same thing on, for example, Amazon, or saw it on a shop down the road and it cost a little bit more, they would be willing to, you know, spend that little bit more to get it from somewhere closer to home and somewhere where they could support their local communities. And also, you know, a similar number of people saying that they prefer to shop at smaller retailers than larger retailers. So I think this is, you know, a consumer sentiment that was already kind of bubbling up, and now is really a good time for independent retailers to see this as their moment to capture this consumer, capture this mindset, and really, you know, bring new customers in.
Just building on that as well, you know, the future of the high street is going to be increasingly independent. There's no doubt about this. Even if there are less physical units on the high street, there are chains that are leaving the high street, big multiples leaving the high street, and BHS is not being replaced by BHS. Yeah, Debenhams is not going to fill that void either. Yeah, so as the big chains to retract from the high street, and there's increasing amounts of space on the high street, the next generation of high street entrepreneurs needs to step up, come in and fill and utilize that space. And we need to create the conditions to make it easier for those independents to be on the high street. And one of the reasons for that is they're needed, because we're not going to see the multiples filling those spaces in the same way. But the other reason is people would prefer to shop on diverse, independently driven high streets. You know, we just need to have the right businesses doing the right things in the right places. And, you know, there's work to be done to do all three of those things. But ultimately, you know, we're going to have more independently driven high streets. And a big part of that is that consumer sentiment is towards it. If the high street offer from an independent is competitive, if the experience is great, if the customer service is fantastic, if the modern tools and marketing approaches and practices of the independents is on par with what should be available elsewhere, and the tools are available, as we see with people like Dominic and Rowena who are delivering those great experiences, you know, we're going to have a largely independently driven high street in the future. We've had, give or take, 500,000 outlets in the UK. We're slightly over, you know, in terms of high street outlets total across all different categories. Of that, 55%-ish at the moment is independent, and 45% are owned by chains. And that percentage is going to increase. So this is an opportunity at this moment here to take advantage of the fact there is pain in the market. There's pain with the, you know, the landlord. You know, there's people that are going to want to fill these spaces, and they're looking for, you know, forward-thinking, entrepreneurial independence to make that happen.
And I think if I can just, sorry Ruth, and just reiterating on that too, I do think there's two very different businesses in terms of the chains and the multiples are very answering to a shareholder, and that's their only main objective. Most of us who run our family businesses are slightly different to that. Yes, of course, the end of the year, a profit is important, but we're a vocation. This is my living. This is my whole family business. We look at a much wider picture. We're not answering to shareholders at the end of the year in a manner that the multiples are. So we are always going to spend some of our expenses in a different manner to give an experience which is second to none, that we can enjoy offering too. We enjoy doing. I mean, some of our events sometimes I think are a little bit over the top because we do the most incredible events in a shop, but I love doing them. And my shareholders would shoot me if I had shareholders, because I spend money sometimes which probably isn't a rational spend. But I spend it because we love doing it. My staff love doing it. My son comes in, he loves being here. My wife loves coming to them, and we get a star in the shop and we love doing it. Why not? And it's an experience. And I think that's where we can capitalize, exactly like Alex is saying, where we need new entrepreneurs in the high street who don't just always chase to a shareholder's dream. They chase to a retail dream because they want to be the best and offer the best experience and enjoy doing it. And I think that's our biggest mantle that we can still offer against the internet and everything, is that experience that we want to portray and we want to enjoy doing.
And let's not forget, the biggest online-only retailers in the world said all of their strategies is coming on the high street. The high street's not fundamentally the problem here, you know. Amazon, you know, has tested all kinds of concept stores in the US. You know, you go over to Asia, where Alibaba and Rakuten are built from the ground up, leveraging, you know, networks of high streets. You know, go other parts of Southeast Asia, same thing. Reliant Industries joining up a connection of, you know, hundreds of thousands of high street-esque businesses on the east coast of India into an e-commerce platform. You know, eBay, central to their strategy, is click and collect, partnerships. You know, the biggest online-only businesses, and then you go into the, you know, the real success stories, the ASOS, the Bonobos, and all of these success stories. They've all got pop-ups and anchor stores. They've all got physical premises in their strategy. And actually, as a high street business, you've already done the hard work to be able to create an environment and experience using the physical bit, and actually connecting the online bit is in some ways would be seen by their side as the easier side.
And just touching on sort of something that everybody's kind of alluded to is and it leads us on to a question from one of the audience, which is, for the panel really. How do you believe independent retailers can capture the attention from their local community, and any top tips?
The question was specifically from the local community, and I'm assuming that is a geographically local community. I draw upon a much wider community, but COVID-19 has really made me think about the area that I'm in Fitzrovia does have quite a high residential mix. It's not just the workers commuting into the office. It's not just about the tourists staying in central London. There is probably a significant amount of my target demographic market actually quite close to me. And I, so far, haven't been doing an awful lot to pull upon that, apart from having a shop front. So having set up the appointments and having said we've only recently got 4 of them so far, one of them is from someone who has no profile of ever buying from our customer in the past, yet their postcode is local to the shop. And that just makes me wonder, what is it that has made them suddenly now book an appointment and is waiting in anticipation to come and shop in our store when they never have done so before? Actually, that came in 24 hours after I had watched one of the webinars that Save the High Street ran in the past week, and it was about your shop window. It was a really actually interesting one, because I'd been pretty blasé about my shop window, going, well, there's no one in central London, why would I bother changing it? Okay, I've got information up, there's a note saying, okay, shop online at this address, these are our social media handles, this is what we expect from the future. But I did go in, I did change up the displays a little bit, but I also changed the handwritten note on the door, and I put a big thank you for your support so far. We're really looking forward to seeing people again. We're going to start offering appointments. Now, whether that person saw that note on the window or not, I have no idea. I will ask them when I see them. I always ask customers how they heard about us. But so far, I don't have that linking information. But we have a local business improvement district, so I'm thinking about the things that I can leverage that will help me reach more of a local audience than just simply having a shop front. I've advertised locally before, like I've had an advert in the local tube station, I've had an advert in local windows, I've done advertising on top of taxis, which can be geographically targeted within an area within London, or even according to the temperature outside. It's really quite interesting and full on, which I learned via Alex kind of thing. But I'm not, for all of the marketing that I do, that I think I'm on it and I think I'm doing it, I'm clearly not reaching these people. So I guess that maybe that's a long way around to say, I'm going to start doing things different to what I've already done. I believe I know it all. Oh, I don't know it all. I know some of it. I strongly believe that this will work, that won't work kind of thing. I've got ingrained in habits. And I guess what COVID-19 has done for me is told me to change up my habits, to not go for the most common denominator in my expectations. I might even start looking at selling through Amazon. Maybe I won't actually, I don't know. It depends on your product mix, but yeah, new attitudes and trying new things. That's my answer to that question.
I think if I can go back to that, we're quite lucky. 90 to 95% of our clients are within our locality. They're not within the Leicester postcode area. So we're a very, very local jeweller. And we've always driven that as the emphasis of any marketing we've done. We're a family, independent, local jeweller here for the locality. And I think that's been a huge strength of our business. And especially as we've grown to a larger size, we are the only important independent local jeweller. The others are now multiples, etc., or very small single shops without the offering the wide, broad offering that we offer. So I think that's been a huge advantage. And all the marketing we've done is about trying to, even in our letters during COVID, I know it sounds ridiculous, I've always told them the table tennis score between my son and I, just to make it feel a smaller business, more independent, more personal. And we drive those then through the events we do. We're lucky, we are a large store. We have got lots of, and Ruth, you've been to one of our events, one of the more entertaining ones as well as I remember it. But you know, you've been to one of our events. We drive the locals in, and not only at the events, our client base, we always do networking events with those other local businesses. So get out there in your community, find out what your next door shop is, see if their client base is the same as yours. They might be a really good complement to your business to bring people into you. Go and find a financial advisor. What's their client base? Where are they buying their fashion from? Where are they buying their jewelry from? Why can't they do one of their evenings in your shop or whatever? And just network, events, and bring people in store. And you know, when we opened this store 5 years ago, we did events literally day after day. And within the first month, I think we did 2,500 different people through events, through the store. We were an event company, but it showed everybody where we were, what the store was, what we had in store. Some of the events were expensive events. Some events were zero expense. It was just driving traffic so people could see where we'd moved to. And I just think that's so important to get your locality within your front door, because you just need them in, and then you've got an opportunity to convert them.
Yeah, I completely agree with, again, everything that the guys are saying here, you know, as all of them are really great top tips here. And some of the events that were offline now, you don't have to necessarily stop. Those same people that came, hopefully you've caught their attention, you've captured their interest and their contact details. So you can invite them to stay in touch and maybe do some more virtual type events. We're seeing a lot of interesting, you know, Zoom and video conference type experiences that are being tested out by independent retailers, as well as a lot of other businesses that, you know, aren't able to even serve their customers because they're completely not in a position to serve their customers, like barbers, you know, and bars and pubs in the community as well, who are staying in touch and running virtual events and experiences. And Rowena mentioned the shop window, and I think it's really important that everyone realizes actually the shop window is a marketing asset to you in this period here. And there's people walking around, and, you know, there's a number of great top tips. If anyone wants to see the presentation from the slides we did at the webinar last week, you know, just drop me or just drop us a line at savethehighstreet.org if anyone's on the webinar here and wants to see a little bit about John Abatti's top tips from the webinar there. I'm happy to share that separately to everyone in the retail jeweler community on the call today. And then there's a bunch of other sort of tactical opportunities that I think are worth considering as a local independent. Look at the keyword trends. There's a lot of interesting keyword trend dynamics going on during this period here, you know, and actually being able to rank organically on certain terms which have a sort of COVID angle. They might not say the word COVID in there, but people are searching for slightly different things in this period than they were before. And you can take advantage of that from a search engine optimization and even an opportunistic paid search marketing, PPC, opportunity point of view. And then in a social point of view, when you're thinking about local, there's lots of things here, both in terms of, you know, continuing to, you know, to push out your content and deliver your content strategy through social, yes, but, you know, there's some really interesting opportunities you might want to look at around jumping on local context hashtags. So you might find that you can actually follow people in social, yeah, and you can see that they're local, but actually if you're following the right hashtags, you can see that there's certain people who are posting at the moment because they are local. They're posting a photo about your high street, and you can engage with them at that moment. Even if they don't buy from you there, you know there's somebody who's local, who should be part of your community and you can engage with. You know, and then one of the points that Rowena mentioned was about engaging with the BID and the Business Improvement District. Now, a lot of places around the UK won't have a constituted partnership. You may not even have a strong community group or a traders association, you know, anybody who's working on the ground as that really active, what we call local champion at SaveTheHighStreet.org, who's really making a stand for success on the high street. Now, that doesn't mean to say that you can't, like Dominic says, be out there and be a member of the community and know everybody and, you know, ideally even be a busybody. I mean, the early days of SaveTheHighStreet.org, one of the big sort of messages we put out there in the end of the first year was that busybodies do better. You know, and it's actually, if you're out there and you just know everybody and you're a part of everything and you want to be involved, you know your neighbours, you know, there's so many opportunities for collaboration there. And the reality is your neighbours are also your competitors, your customers, as well as in some eyes, you know, your competitors. You know, but actually, in a lot of cases on the high street, even people who are offering similar like-for-like products on a high street, they're not really your competitors here, because the more people you can bring to the high street, the better you can both do. And actually, often you can work together to have a complementary offer if you have got an exact like-for-like, which actually very few people on this call should have. There's not likely to be two competing jewelers unless you're in some parts of London I'm aware of. So, you know, there's definitely an opportunity for more collaboration on the high street. And if you can actually go out there and say, well, you know, I know every one of my neighbours, the next question is what can I do more with my neighbours? You know, is it about doing shared events that actually we invite all of our network, both of them to? Because the reality is all four of our businesses, we have different customers. And if we do a shared event together when we invite everybody, everybody's made aware of the things that we're doing. Is it about tactical opportunities where actually we might set up a commercial affiliate type arrangement between each other because we have really complementary products and we should be cross-selling each other all the time? Is it a case that even I've got my physical space here and I'm opening like Dominic on Monday, but I've actually got a bit of space in the store and I can actually start to use this. Maybe I can even sublet it out to complementary businesses to come in and showcase their products and services in interesting ways. And when they come in, they can promote to their audiences to bring in and learn about my business, as well as potentially earning me some extra income. So I think collaboration is a really interesting opportunity to build on. And if you do have a really active business improvement district, community group, traders association, working with them to be part of the plan to make sure your high street recovers from this period, you know, it's obviously in the interest of the overall high street, but it's very much in the interest of you personally too.
Brilliant. We've got just under 15 minutes left, so I'm going to take a couple of questions that have come in from the audience, and this is for the independent retailers. I guess it's a sort of, what have you learned from the coronavirus crisis, or what one thing that you haven't been doing are you now going to consider doing or investing in going forward?
Rowena, after you.
I suppose the thing that is different that I'm going to start doing now is, I think for 3 months we've been in this lockdown bubble. Everybody has stayed at home. I know I personally have been very worried about the future of my business. I've been kind of focused inward on getting through this. I really feel that I'm now reaching the point where I need to turn more of my attention outward. What I'm going to do differently from here on now is, I think my messaging and my storytelling and my communications all need to really start inspiring confidence, because I want my customers to start coming back through the front doors. Now, yes, maybe we'll have a re-emergence, maybe the R rate will change, maybe we will have a new normal. I can't, maybe some people can't quite envisage what the new normal is going to be because they want to go back to the old ways, but that's not going to happen. But I think even though I'm not opening my shop for full opening hours from Monday, what I need to do is start changing the way that I talk to people. I've been talking to them in a way that I think is relevant to my customers so far, where I've been talking to them where they are stuck at home. So what can you do while you're stuck at home? What is relevant to that scenario? How am I involved in that kind of thing? But now the advice might not be yet ready to travel to central London on Monday, but I need to start slowly changing, creeping. That's what I'm going to start doing now. I'm going to start inspiring people. I'm going to start building confidence, and I'm going to change my internal head of my lockdown experience to what is going to happen. What does the post-lockdown world look like? So that's what I'm going to start communicating to my customers. I'd love if I was on a high street that didn't require an hour-long tube journey or whatever to get to it, which is basically the barrier for me. And I love that, you know, where Dominic is, maybe a lot of more of his customers can drive to him or can even walk to him or whatever. But, you know, in central London, I just don't have that. But my storytelling and my messaging does need to start that change ready for when customers do feel safe to do it, that they will just leap.
I think for us, you know, I think, again, understanding what Rowena is saying there, but for us, we if I can say, have been very pleased with how we've traded and survived through lockdown. And I think it's surprised us, you know, from that initial moment where there was an abyss and I thought, oh my God, no turnover, what we're going to do? We have traded remarkably well, and we're not as much down as I thought we would be at this stage, and I'm remarkably buoyant by that. But we did furlough the staff, or most of the staff, because obviously the shop was closed. It only needed 2 of us in every day, so 2 of us were in each day. And the one thing I think has come out of it that's been a benefit is the amount of training that I've been able to get my staff to do. So, you know, they've all been at home doing any training courses that have been available. And we've been allowed to do that through the furlough scheme as I read it. So I hope I'm not saying anything that gets me into trouble. But, you know, they've all been on on the retail jewellery courses, any course that we've got them, all the watch brand courses. And I'm hoping that I've got a far more educated, even better sales team than we had before, who can actually give an even better experience before. I think in all honesty, the COVID, besides the virtual appointments, which have been extremely helpful during a period of time and definitely helped sales, I have to say, I feel reassured through COVID that all the practices we've been doing before it have made us a strong company through it. And we will come out the other side stronger than the day we closed down, both financially and as a business. And I think that's what it's shown me, is that you can look at adversity sometimes and you can actually hit adversity and come out in a stronger method and a stronger, better business. And that's what I think it's taught me.
I think when this all kicked off, one of the first things we did is we set up a research group with businesses and experts to really look at what does it take to succeed on what we call the coronavirus era high street. You know, so I looked at everything from reducing your costs and selling in new ways, adapting your marketing, preparing for the future, collaborating as a high street, and funding your business. And we looked at what are the different strategies that are there. And over the last month and a half, we really focused around refining and updating that with a lens on recovery and resilience. And so 10 days ago, and Ruth published this, we launched a campaign around the recovery and resilience of the high street. And a big focus of ours is making sure that every independent business has access to a package of free support around, you know, what does it take for me with my situation, with the things going on for me personally? What do I need to do next across hundreds and hundreds of different things? So our big focus, and it's our big focus at SaveTheHighStreet.org full stop this month, is making sure that as many businesses as possible get access to what we're calling a health check report. So you complete a survey and it basically gives you a view across all of these different areas, how you're doing, where are the gaps that other people are doing that are successful for other businesses that you could be putting in place yourself. And that across the key things that you could be looking at here, that you've got access to really good quality step-by-step guides and the best support that's available in market. And we're doing what we can at the moment to try and use a bit of our scale to negotiate better deals on everything from sanitizer units to, you know, support around, you know, anything to do with what you're trying to achieve here. We're trying to kind of get access to, you know, more exclusive support around that. But I think the most important thing here is that every business is firstly aware that, you know, there are hundreds of different things that could be done around recovery and resilience for your business. And what are the things that other people are doing, and at least having that checklist in place. So rather than reel it off, if anybody on the call is interested in kind of getting access to this, it's free and on SaveTheHighStreet.org. But I think the key thing to be thinking about here is, you know, I can't do everything at once, but I think this is an opportunity period, as Dominic's identified, to kind of use this opportunity, this period, as a bit of an opportunity to get everybody more prepared in the team, to skill people up, to make sure as a business owner, you've got a really good view of where is the market today in terms of tactics and capabilities and business practices, and what is it that I could be putting in place over the coming months and years to make sure that not only do I recover as a business and I recover as a high street successfully, but actually I'm resilient to any future shocks that come in.
Yeah, and I just wanted to sort of, I mean, I guess before we run out of time, I just wanted to ask everybody on the panel what you kind of feel the future holds, and what the long-term impacts of COVID-19 are going to be for your individual businesses, or just in general. So maybe Hannah, I can start with you, because you've probably got a bit of an overview.
Sure. So I think it will differ from the short term and then, long term changes. In the short term, we're going to have a lot of issues around, social distancing probably until next year, and things like that, where, it might be more difficult for smaller retailers and they might have to think of, different ways to work around this, such as, various appointments. And I do believe over time that retailers will be able to work something out that works. Longer term, I think we do have, changing consumer sentiment around, as discussed before, things like online shopping. People are going to do that a lot more. Changing feeling towards, local retailers. I think the high street will change dramatically because we will see a lot of retailers that were struggling. I'm talking about, the chain retailers that were struggling before start to have to rethink, close down stores. We're already seeing big retailers such as Debenhams, saying they're not going to open. They're closing around 20 stores, I think it is so far, that just aren't going to reopen after this. And that will change the shape of the high street dramatically. I think we might continue to see more of a mix of, entertainment experiences and shopping. So this becoming, a real social aspect. High streets are going to have to become more social places. And I think all of the ideas before about, different retailers collaborating with each other can only contribute to those changes and create more of a community feel.
Great. And what about for the retailers?
Shall I go first this time, Rowena? Actually, long term, I don't believe COVID. I think a lot of the retailers we're seeing demise. Let's all face facts. Debenhams have demised long before COVID. I mean, it's how many times has there been an administration over the last 4 years? I mean, they're only closing stores that they've probably had to close down. And COVID, if we can use that word, accelerate, has accelerated the demise of a lot of weak retailers that I think would have demised at some other stage anyway. I think we'll see a difference in change of shopping malls, where I think a lot of those, Hammerson or Into might go into receivership administration, but they will re-emerge through a buyer who would have bought it for a penny in a pound, and they will emerge with no debt and much stronger businesses. They'll be able to realign their rents to attract retailers into those malls. So it will change, and the new norm will be the old norm eventually. I'm not a great believer that the whole world's going to change because of this. Human beings are very resilient. Just look at these awful riots we've had. Those people have all gone out with no masks and no social distancing, with just the first excuse to go out. So people are resilient. If you look at the markets that have reopened, we're lucky enough to have somewhere in Spain, and we're speaking to people in Spain. They said the restaurants were quiet for 3 days after they started opening. They're now all very, very busy again. Our local car dealership, Lamborghini car dealership, sold more Lamborghinis in the last 2 weeks than any other time in its history. There's going to be a retail bounce. People will want to go shopping. I am absolutely 100% confident that next week we will have a good retail week. I think slightly longer term, it will dip again. And with the huge unemployment that's going to be created, sadly, there's going to be some retailers at the lower price point, average selling price to us, who are going to be badly affected to it. But eventually, the whole of recessions go in cycles. This will come round, and we will survive to fight another day.
Yeah,
Rowena.
I think the transition coming out of lockdown could be challenging. But if you know your value proposition, if you know why you're special and different, and if you can get your customers to understand it, the small businesses that come through stronger, it's going to be an amazing future. I really believe that Revival Retro is going to thrive in the long term. I believe in my business. I believe that my customers will recognize that. I believe there's a good future coming. It's just there's going to be a tricky path to get there in the first instance. So stay strong, everyone.
Well, I think that is pretty positive note to actually end on, and we're almost out of time, so I will leave it there. But I wanted to say thank you very much to all of the panelists today. There's been some great insight. If anybody who is on the call wants any more information on what was discussed, just do get in touch with us at Retail Jeweller, and we can put you in contact with the right people. And this will also be, if there's anybody who missed today's webinar or that would benefit from watching it, there will be a video of this going live on our website in a couple of days as well. But thank you very much to everybody, and thanks to everyone for joining.